Show where we take a stack of sources, articles, and research and extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, all custom tailored for you. Have you ever found your organization, or maybe even just yourself, sort of staring into the strategic abyss, wondering what's next, or maybe how do we actually win in this market?
Hmm.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into strategic choice, that crucial, often complex process of closing the gap between where an organization is right now and where it truly wants to be. It's really about charting a course that aligns with its mission and the dynamic environment it operates in.
Yeah, and what's really interesting there is how this seemingly broad concept, strategic choice, it breaks down into three very distinct yet interconnected core elements. We're talking about competitive strategies, essentially, the game plan for how an organization aims to, well, outperform its rivals. Then you've got growth strategies, so how a business expands into new markets or develops new offerings. And finally, this is critical strategy evaluation, that filter, helping you choose the best path forward from all those available options.
That distinction is key, absolutely. And the relevance for you, our listener, is immense, isn't it? Think about it. Competitive strategies are often paramount for, say, early stage industries or rapidly growing markets, like the intense innovation race in wearable tech, maybe, or, that constant battle between Chinese mobile phone manufacturers and the Apple iPhone. But when an existing market matures or even starts to decline, that's when growth strategies really come to the forefront. Like Apple might have a strong position in US mobile phones, right? A defensible one. But as sales slow there, they're not just standing still. They're constantly looking for where their next wave of growth will come from, whether that's new products, new services, or entirely new markets. And that's the essence of understanding growth strategy.
Okay, so let's unpack this and jump straight into competitive strategy options then. One of the most influential frameworks comes from Professor Michael Porter. He identified three kind of generic strategies for achieving a sustainable competitive advantage. It's about deciding your fundamental approach, really.
Exactly. First up, we have cost leadership.
The aim here is incredibly simple on paper, yet incredibly difficult to execute well. You cut production, purchasing, or service costs to the absolute minimum, and then in turn, you cut your selling prices to attract volume. How do you pull this off? Well, think massive economies of scale, exploiting learning effects to become hyper-efficient, huge production runs, relentlessly sourcing cheaper labor and materials, or even operating from less expensive premises. The benefits are pretty clear. You achieve high volumes, you create a significant barrier to entry for any new players trying to compete on price, and, you're built to win price wars.
That sounds like a powerful position, definitely. But what's the tightrope walk there? What are the biggest threats that can quickly unravel a cost?
Yeah.
Well, the real takeaway here is that cost leadership, while powerful, it's a constant tightrope walk. Seriously, one misstep, one shift in global economics, and your entire foundation can just crumble. The threats are real. There's very little fallback if you lose that cost advantage. Larger rivals from overseas might enter with even lower costs. A strong currency can make your domestic products less competitive against cheaper imports. And recessions, well, they can hit your price-sensitive customer base hard. This strategy is truly best suited for large organizations with immense operational discipline. Walmart is, like, the quintessential example, right? Globally renowned for its relentless focus on keeping costs low. Okay, next up is differentiation. Here the goal is not to be the cheapest, but to offer a product or service that, well, can't be matched by rivals in a way that customers genuinely value. This allows you to charge a premium for that difference. And this is achieved through things like powerful branding, superior quality and design, continuous innovation, effective knowledge management within your organization, tight control over suppliers to ensure unique inputs, and truly exceptional customer support. We see different types of differentiation in action too. There's quality, like a premium coffee percolator designed to improve taste by precisely managing water quality and bean grinding time. There's pure design differentiation, where the product truly breaks away visually and functionally from the norm. Image differentiation uses clever marketing to create a perception, even if it's partly cosmetic, think premium packaging or luxury endorsements. And support differentiation focuses on stellar after-sales service that builds loyalty.
So if you manage to differentiate successfully, what are the big payoffs? And on the flip side, what's the subtle trap companies might fall into when trying to differentiate?
The rewards are substantial, no doubt. Higher profit margins, fierce customer loyalty that makes them resistant to switching, and reduced customer power because they can't easily find an equivalent elsewhere. But the trap? Well, it can be easily copied if your difference isn't truly robust. It demands constant, expensive innovation and much higher marketing budgets than cost leadership. And critically, customers might simply be unwilling to pay that premium, especially during an economic downturn. This strategy is ideal for innovative companies with substantial marketing budgets like Bang and Olufsen, known for their highly stylish, upmarket home entertainment equipment. They sell an experience as much as a product. Finally, we have the focus strategy. This isn't about the whole market. It positions the business in a particular well-defined niche. It can be a cost focus, where you aim for the absolute lowest cost specifically for that niche, or a differentiation focus, offering a unique product or service to that niche that no one else serves as well. The main reward is becoming a genuine expert in your specific field, truly understanding and serving that unique marketplace.
That makes sense for smaller players, yeah. But what are the risks if you get too good at focusing? Does it sort of become a victim of its own success?
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. The risks are that the niche itself might not be large or sustainable enough to be profitable in the long term. Or, if you're too successful, you might attract larger cost leaders or differentiators who then decide to enter your specialized market, and they can leverage their scale to crush you. This strategy is often best for small, entrepreneurial businesses with deep market knowledge. Saga Holidays is a great example. They specialize exclusively in holidays for those over 55. They know that demographic inside and out. And a crucial point Porter makes when often overlooked is that if a business fails to achieve one of these generic positions, it ends up stuck in the middle. It will lose customers to both the cost leaders and the differentiators, as well as to rivals who focus on specialist needs. It's a strategic no man's land. What's truly insidious about being stuck in the middle isn't just lost sales, it's the internal paralysis. Companies burn through resources trying to be everything to everyone, often without realizing they're actually becoming nothing to anyone.
That clarity on being stuck in the middle is incredibly insightful, really paints a picture. So, building on Porter's ideas, let's introduce another perspective, the strategy clock. This framework offers an alternative way to identify competitive advantage, focusing specifically on how a firm supplies what customers want better or more effectively than competitors. It really boils down to offering the best value for money, doesn't it?
Indeed. The strategy clock lays out several routes to competitive advantage, essentially plotting perceived benefits against price. Let's start with the price-based strategies, routes 1 and 2. Route 1 is no frills. This is about offering very basic products or services at a super low cost, targeting highly price-sensitive customers. Those who just want the absolute bare minimum to get the job done. Costs are kept low because the product itself is so minimal. Think of Ryanair, a highly successful no-frills airline with ferocious attention to keeping costs down. Non-reclining seats to save weight, no back-of-seat pockets for easier cleaning, discouraging checked baggage to reduce airport charges using cheaper airports. It's extreme, but effective. Then there's route 2, low price. This aims for a low price, but without sacrificing perceived quality. For this to work in the long run, it absolutely needs to be supported by a very efficient, low-cost base. Dell computers are a good example here. They offer good quality computers at competitive prices. They rely on highly efficient direct-to-consumer sales and production techniques to maintain a reasonable margin. Moving on, we have route 3, the hybrid strategy. This is fascinating because it aims to achieve a good level of differentiation while simultaneously keeping prices down. This usually implies achieving very high volumes or finding incredibly innovative ways to keep costs low despite the investment in differentiation. IKEA is a classic example. Cheap furnishings, yes, but with smart design and a vast range. Their costs are kept low through self-service, efficient flat pack production, immense volumes, and excellent logistics that pass savings to the customer. Now for the differentiation strategies, routes 4 and 5. Route 4 is differentiation. Here, you offer genuinely better products and services at higher selling prices. These products and services need to be targeted very carefully to ensure customers are willing to pay that premium. Think of full-service airlines like British Airways. Their prices are typically higher, but you get in-flight service, more league room, better meal options, comprehensive support if there are scheduling problems. It's a premium experience. And then Route 5, focused differentiation. This offers very high perceived benefits at very high prices, often relying on powerful branding and exclusivity. New ventures frequently start with focused strategies, serving a small, high-value segment, and only broaden their scope as they grow. Examples here include business and first class on full-service airlines or couture fashion. Small, exclusive markets sustained by powerful brand names where the value is in the prestige and bespoke nature.
That's a great way to map out value for money. Really clear. So, thinking about these, where would you place a company selling specialized planting consultation to new farmers? With expertise in local unusual soil, or maybe on the other end of the spectrum, a large manufacturer selling unbranded copies of an old children's toy to low fixed price retailers.
Right. The first one, the planting consultation, that would clearly be focused differentiation. They're in a niche, providing very specialized knowledge for a premium, solving a very specific problem, high perceived benefit, high price for a select group. The second, the unbranded toy manufacturer. That would be a strong example of no frills. Route 1. They're stripping away everything but the core function to hit the lowest possible price point. Low benefit, low price. Lastly, we have what we call failure strategies, routes 6, 7, and 8. These are essentially offering ordinary products or services at high prices. This can only possibly work if you have a protected monopoly, and even then, sneakily reducing benefits while maintaining prices, hoping customers won't notice. Imagine a company trying to sell refurbished iPads at the exact same price as brand new iPads. This strategy is almost guaranteed to fail. Why? Because they'll be beaten on price by rivals offering refurbished iPads at a lower cost, Route 2, and they'll be beaten by Apple itself, Route 4, which offers a superior new product at the same price. It just doesn't work. Similarly, a sole trader selling secondhand tractors at the retail price of equivalent new tractors would find themselves in this unsustainable position. It's a recipe for irrelevance.
Okay, here's where it gets really compelling, I think. Because achieving a competitive advantage is one thing, right? But sustaining it, well, that's an entirely different and arguably much harder challenge. It's not a one-time win. It's a continuous battle against competitors and market shifts. The sources highlight that competitive advantage can best be sustained by strategic capabilities that are valued, rare, and robust.
That's absolutely right. For a capability to be valued, it must genuinely generate something that customers appreciate in your products or services. It's not enough to just be distinctive. It has to deliver real value to the customer. For rarity, well, your competitive advantage won't last if all your rivals have identical capabilities. Pretty obvious, maybe. You need unique or truly rare resources or competencies to consistently outperform them. And finally, robustness. This means that your capabilities must be hard to imitate. And this is often less about physical, tangible assets which can often be copied or acquired fairly easily. It's more about the unique way your resources are organized and deployed, your internal processes, maybe even your culture. Those organizational competencies are much harder for rivals to identify and replicate.
I recall the example of US and UK companies bringing call centers back from India. That seems like a prime case where what was once valued, rare, and robust actually eroded surprisingly quickly.
It's a perfect illustration, yeah. In the early 2000s, there was this huge rush to outsource call center services to India. You had cheap labor, a common language, low property prices, enabling technology. It looked like an unassailable advantage. But over time, the robustness eroded. Wage and property prices in India increased significantly, making their costs less competitive, especially as domestic wage rates in the US and UK stabilized or even fell in some cases. The rarity disappeared as domestic providers in the US and UK invested in extra capacity and refined their own service models. Indian services became less unique, and critically, the value diminished. Customer complaints about service quality from Indian call centers became more frequent. This led to domestic companies valuing the onshore service more highly again. There was also a political backlash in the U.S. against using foreign labor, and high staff turnover among good Indian call center staff further harmed the service value. All these factors combined meant that what was once a robust, rare, and valued advantage became unsustainable. It's a powerful lesson in how dynamic competitive advantage really is.
That's a sobering thought, really. So, given how quickly things can change, what specific strategic steps can organizations take to actively protect their competitive position once they've established it? It sounds like it's a constant game of chess.
It absolutely is a constant game. Organizations can employ several key strategies. If you're pursuing a price-based approach, you must focus on further cost efficiencies. Think Ryanair's extreme focus again. They are constantly looking for new ways to cut costs, from using less ice in drinks to reduce aircraft weight and fuel usage, to even considering things like pressuring governments to operate flights without a co-pilot. It's an almost obsessive drive toward making flights virtually free. Another tactic is winning price wars, aggressively undercutting new entrants to force them out. Like when News Corp drastically reduced newspaper prices to deter a new rival who quickly incurred unsustainable losses and retreated. And finally, accepting lower margins. While margins per unit might erode over time due to competition, you can compensate by maintaining immense volumes. Society's BIC, with its enduring BIC pen, is a testament to this, making large overall profits despite steadily falling per unit margins by maintaining market leadership and immense sales volumes globally. Now, for differentiation-based strategies, sustaining advantage involves creating difficulties in imitation. This means leveraging patent protection, developing unique production methods, owning key technology, or maybe tying in suppliers through exclusive agreements. You also need to achieve imperfect mobility of resources. That means ensuring the capabilities that create your difference cannot be easily traded or moved to rivals. This could involve tying key staff to long-term, non-competition contracts, fiercely protecting insider knowledge, and building strong and tangible assets like powerful brand names that resonate emotionally with customers. And crucially, reinvesting those healthy margins. Just look at Apple's continuous innovation with the iPhone and iPad. By the time rivals manage to copy one of Apple's latest features, Apple is already deep into developing the next innovation, always staying ahead and differentiated. They literally reinvest their profits into future differentiation. And then there's lock-in. This strategy can work for both price-based and differentiation-based approaches. It happens when a business's products or services become an indispensable part of a user's ecosystem or an industry standard. This makes it costly or just inconvenient for users to switch to rivals. Think of Microsoft Windows, Dolby audio technology as a standard, or the historical dominance of Internet Explorer. These weren't necessarily always the best or cheapest products, but their market dominance created a powerful barrier to exit for users. The major threat to businesses relying on lock-in, however, is often attention from anti-monopoly regulators, who can challenge practices that stifle competition.
It's clear then that innovation is absolutely critical for sustaining competitive advantage. It's almost like a lifeblood for a company, isn't it? Right. Without it, you're just, well, waiting to be copied.
It truly is. Innovation is increasingly vital. You get the accelerated rate of technical advances, intensified global competition, constantly rising customer expectations. It applies across the board, to the very nature of the product or service, how it's produced and delivered, and even how the firm operates in new or novel ways. This often involves research and development, or R&D, which aims to satisfy market needs and find applications for scientific discoveries. We often see innovation as either demand-pulled, meaning it fills a clear market need, or technology-pushed, coming from the application of new discoveries that create a need nobody knew they had. To foster innovation, management policies need to actively encourage it. This means providing ample financial backing for R&D and market research, creating an environment where ideas are exchanged freely, actively encouraging employees and customers to submit new ideas, forming dedicated development teams, recruiting skilled staff for innovative work, and ensuring managers constantly gather and disseminate information about new ideas from the environment. Consider Amazon's innovation journey. They started as an internet bookseller in 1995, quickly expanded to CDs and DVDs, but then facing competitors like Apple's iTunes, they didn't stop. Amazon invested heavily in digital downloads with the development of the Kindle and Kindle Fire, building entirely new ecosystems. This continuous innovation was essential. Without it, they risked becoming obsolete, much like how they themselves disrupted traditional bookstores.
That's a perfect segue, actually, because as companies think about sustaining their competitive edge, they're also inherently looking at how to grow, right? Let's shift our focus now to growth strategies, introducing a widely used framework for this, the Ansoff matrix. It helps categorize the different ways a company can expand.
Yeah, the Ansoff matrix gives us 4 generic growth strategies based on whether you're dealing with existing or new products and existing or new markets. First, we have market penetration, which means selling existing products into existing markets. Strategies here include increasing customer spend per visit, boosting visit frequency, winning customers from rivals, or encouraging non-users to buy. However, there are inherent risks. Competitor reaction can be fierce, and focusing purely on penetration without innovation can lead to stagnation.
And what's the cautionary tale here for companies that are too focused on penetration? What happens if they just dig their heels in too deep on what they already do?
A prime cautionary tale is Kodak's focus on traditional cameras and film. They were masters of market penetration in that space, absolutely, but they failed to adapt to digital photography. When the traditional market declined, Kodak was too far behind to catch up, ultimately leading to bankruptcy. It shows that even a dominant position in an existing market can vanish if you don't look beyond penetration. If market penetration fails, organizations might consider consolidation, efficiency gains, or even withdrawal from the market eventually. Next is product development, which involves creating new products for existing markets. The aim is to increase sales by developing new or improved products. This can come from internal research and development, joint ventures with other companies, or even by cleverly adapting or improving rivals' products. Key risks include uncertainty about market size and demand for the new product, and a significant one, sales cannibalization. For instance, when Apple launches a new generation of iPads, sales of older ones often fall dramatically because customers switch. While developing new products can prevent obsolescence and react to technological changes, it's expensive, carries considerable investment risk, and, let's be honest, many new products fail despite best efforts. Then there's market development, taking existing products to new markets. This means repositioning present products for new customer segments or expanding geographically, often overseas. Examples include Kellogg's Corn Flakes being repositioned from just breakfast to afternoon and evening snacks, or Luxified's successful shift from an infirmity drink for the sick to a mass-market sports beverage. Interestingly, Horlicks tried a similar repositioning from a bedtime drink to a daytime healthy beverage, but it was largely unsuccessful. Shows it's not always easy. This strategy requires a fresh external analysis due to new cultures, legal rules, competitors, and often involves strategic alliances like joint ventures or franchises to mitigate risk. Finally, we have diversification, which is typically the riskiest because it involves moving into entirely new activities with new products and new markets. Within diversification, there are a few types. Conglomerate diversification involves moving into markets completely unrelated to your existing technologies or products, often to build a diversified portfolio and spread risk. Companies like Hansen and Virgin are well known for this. Advantages include increased flexibility, quick growth, and risk diversification across multiple unrelated businesses. But disadvantages include a lack of synergies and potential loss of management focus because you're running such disparate operations. Then there's horizontal diversification, where you develop into activities that are competitive with or directly complementary to your present operations. An example is a TV manufacturer branching into DVD recorders, camcorders, or hi-fi equipment. This often creates synergies by leveraging existing customer bases or distribution channels, offers defense against substitutes, and widens the product portfolio. However, it requires new strategic capabilities and can still be harder to manage than sticking to your core. And lastly, vertical integration. This means taking control of different stages of your supply chain. Forward integration is moving closer to the consumer, controlling distribution, like a drinks manufacturer buying pubs, or a car manufacturer buying a chain of car dealers. Backward integration is moving away from the consumer, controlling suppliers, such as a beer brewer buying hop growers, or a car manufacturer buying a component maker. The general advantages include potential economies from combined operations, assured supply of critical components or access to market, and creating barriers to entry for competitors. However, disadvantages can include it not always being cheaper than external suppliers, reduced flexibility to switch suppliers if better options emerge, increased capital investment, and often differing managerial requirements and cultures between the integrated businesses.
That's a comprehensive overview. So let's take a common business, maybe. Consider a clothes manufacturer. Let's call them M Company. What would be the advantages and disadvantages for them if they bought a chain of retail outlets that's forward integration, right? Versus if they bought a company that manufactures cloth, which is backward integration. Yeah. What are the practical differences in those strategic choices for M Company?
That's a great real-world scenario to consider. Buying retail outlets, so forward integration, for M Company. Well, it could offer strong advantages. Things like direct control over their brand image, potentially higher margins by cutting out the middleman, and assured demand for their clothes. But the downside is they'd need entirely new skills in retail management, which is very different. And their existing retail customers, the ones who stock M Company's clothes now, they could become hostile if they're suddenly competing directly. On the other hand, buying a cloth manufacturer, backward integration, that would give M Company assured quality and price control over their raw materials, and potentially lower inventory costs. But they might find themselves locked into one supplier even if cheaper or higher quality alternatives emerge later, reducing their flexibility. In both cases, M Company would need new skills retailing or textile manufacturing, which are very different from clothes manufacturing. And the distinct business focuses of each operation could easily conflict, pulling management in different directions. It's rarely as simple as just buying your supplier,
That illustration really clarifies the complexity. Yeah, definitely not simple. What's compelling, though, is that successful companies don't just pick one of these growth strategies. They often use a dynamic mix of them to drive comprehensive growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take Tesco Pillock, the UK supermarket giant. Its growth from, $3 billion to over $90 billion in revenue. It demonstrates a brilliant, multi-pronged approach across the Ansoff matrix. For market penetration, they introduced 24-hour opening and shrewdly shifted their overall strategy from pure differentiation towards a hybrid model, offering good value and competitive pricing to win more customers. For product development, they expanded into petrol sales, clothing, and electrical goods within their existing supermarket stores. For market development, they pursued aggressive overseas expansion and launched Tesco Express, smaller stores aimed at convenience shoppers in urban segments, reaching new customer types. And for diversification, they moved into entirely new areas like financial services and Tesco Direct, their online retail platform. This shows that truly successful companies aren't constrained by one strategy. They employ the full range of Ansoff growth strategies as opportunities arise.
That makes perfect sense. And speaking of market development and diversification, that naturally brings us to the idea of international growth, which, well, takes these concepts to a global scale.
Indeed. Companies pursue international diversification for several compelling reasons. There are increasing opportunities from global markets, especially if products themselves are becoming global or if their customers operate globally. If local markets are saturated, selling products into new locations using existing skills spreads risks across different economies. You can balance poor results in one market with good conditions in another. And of course, taking advantage of lower labor costs or specific market aspects in different locations can be a huge driver. Driving forces for international expansion include rapid advances in technology, the rise of free markets, economic integration like trade blocs, and a clear outward-looking management vision. However, there are significant restraining factors too. Deeply ingrained cultural differences, market variations in consumer preferences, high cost of entry. Restrictive national controls, rising nationalism, and even management myopia or a strong domestic focus can hinder global ambitions. When expanding internationally, companies might adopt a multi-domestic strategy, tailoring products to individual countries. Or a global strategy, selling standard products worldwide with minimal changes. Or a balanced strategy, which is largely global, but with minor local modifications. This brings us to the complex concept of globalization itself, which changes the significance of geography and can even homogenize tastes across borders, like the rise of global food trends, where shared tastes transcend national boundaries.
So, after exploring so many strategic options, the obvious question for you, our listener, is how do organizations actually decide which path is truly the best one forward? With so many choices, evaluation must be absolutely key, right?
This raises an important question, yeah. And it's where the Johnson, Scholes, and Whittington, or JSW, criteria come in. They argue that for any strategy to be successful, it must satisfy three crucial tests: suitability, feasibility, and acceptability. These can be applied to competitive strategies, growth strategies, or really any other strategic choice an organization faces. It provides a robust filter. Suitability assesses whether the strategy genuinely fits the organization's environment and effectively addresses its key issues. Does it make sense given changes in technology, competitor reactions, or where the business is in its life cycle? Does it actually solve the problems the company is currently facing? It also considers the cultural fit. Will staff naturally embrace or resist the change? Can the existing organizational structure genuinely incorporate it? Then there's feasibility. This evaluates whether the organization actually has the necessary resources to carry out the strategy. Does it have the right number of staff with the right skills and experience? Is there adequate finance, suitable technology, appropriate marketing and design capabilities? Does the organization have relevant experience in this particular market or with this product? Feasibility also looks at practical barriers to entry to ensure the market can truly be accessed. Finally, acceptability. This considers the strategy from the perspective of risk, return, and stakeholder expectations. For risk, you look at financial ratios, perform sensitivity analysis to see how robust the plan is to changes, and consider the overall risk attitude of key stakeholders. Are they risk-averse or risk-seeking? For return, the strategy must meet the financial and non-financial expectations of stakeholders, looking at shareholder wealth, like net present value, accounting returns, profits, or maybe key performance indicators such as customer satisfaction or market share gains. And for stakeholder expectations, it's about considering how customers will react, whether the staff will remain motivated, if the policy is ethical, how the wider community will react, and if the strategy aligns with the organization's overall vision, mission, and objectives. It's the broadest and often most overlooked test, I think.
This framework sounds incredibly practical. Yeah, really useful. Let's put it to the test for our listener. Imagine Sarah Wu, who has a highly successful local bookstore. She wants to open a second store in a nearby town, a seemingly straightforward growth strategy. But her friend, Misa, who just finished university, suggests she instead invest her $15,000 in a worldwide book-selling website, claiming it'll offer a much quicker return. How would Misa's website strategy truly fare under the JSW criteria? This feels like a classic good idea on paper versus good idea in reality challenge.
Okay, let's walk through it. First, feasibility. While setting up a basic website might be cheap, designing and, more importantly, maintaining a competitive global website that requires technical expertise that Sarah, as a local bookstore owner, likely doesn't possess, and selling books worldwide. That demands complex international distribution networks she definitely doesn't have. Outsourcing these could quickly outweigh any benefits from the $15,000 investment. So from a feasibility standpoint, Moose's strategy is likely not feasible for Sarah. She simply doesn't have the capabilities or immediate access to them. Next, acceptability. Sarah runs a small, owner-managed business, which usually implies she's quite risk-averse. International expansion, especially in e-commerce, is inherently risky and incredibly difficult to control for someone unfamiliar with that scale. She's unlikely to feel confident or comfortable in such a drastic shift in her business model. So it's probably unacceptable to her personally and professionally. It just doesn't align with her comfort zone or risk profile. And finally, suitability. The internet already has incredibly established worldwide bookselling companies like Amazon.
They've built immense reputations, sophisticated supply chains, and benefit from massive economies of scale, allowing them to sell books at prices Sarah couldn't possibly match. Her small website would struggle immensely to gain any competitive advantage against these giants. Therefore, the strategy is completely unsuitable for her. It doesn't fit the competitive landscape at all. So in conclusion, Misa's seemingly good idea for a worldwide website is just not a valid strategy for Sarah to pursue. It fails all three critical evaluation tests. It really demonstrates why a seemingly good idea might simply not be the right fit for a particular organization when put under a rigorous strategic lens.
What a journey. Wow. We've navigated the complex waters of strategic choice, haven't we? From understanding how organizations choose to compete, whether through cost leadership, differentiation, or focus, to the dynamic strategy clock that assesses true value for money. We then explored the critical need to sustain that competitive advantage by building valued, rare, and robust capabilities, and the nonstop necessity of innovation to stay ahead.
And we then expanded our view to growth strategies, using the Ansoff matrix to dissect market penetration, product development, market development, and the various forms of diversification, from horizontal to vertical, including the complexities of international expansion. Finally, we look at the indispensable process of strategy evaluation using the Johnson, Scholes, and Whittington criteria of suitability, feasibility, and acceptability to ensure that chosen paths are not just appealing, but truly viable and wise.
Understanding strategic choice really provides a powerful shortcut to being well-informed about business decisions, I feel. You now have the frameworks to dissect a company's moves, whether they're a global giant like Tesco or, a local business like Sarah's bookstore trying to figure out what's next.
We've explored how organizations choose their path to competitive advantage and growth, and how they evaluate those paths. But as technology continues to accelerate change and markets evolve at, dizzying speeds, this raises an important question, doesn't it? In a world where every advantage can be fleeting and every business model is potentially disruptible, what does sustained competitive advantage truly look like in the long term? And how might that understanding challenge the very frameworks we've discussed today? Food for thought.